testing as a career, unlocking opportunities in the digital age. And over to you.
Well, first of all, I'd like to welcome you all and thank you for staking around for my particular talk, and also for SIGiST for doing this online and in-person event. I'm really pleased to be here. So I'm here to talk about testing as a career. I'm gearing it not just for those new testers entering the industry, but also those that are as part of the industry, how you can keep your career going and how you can keep it interesting. And we've heard some fantastic talks about all those things that you can go into or use in your actual roles. So I'm trying to sort of put all that together in this talk so that you can actually plan ahead and think how you actually want to take your career and where you want to go. So the things I'm going to talk about today are, first of all, I'm going to talk a bit about me and my actual career. And then I'm going to go into more detail. So I'm going to go into why. Why should you consider testing as a career? And then what career options you have. I've only got 20 minutes. I'm only going to scratch the surface, but I'm going to give you a sort of an overview. Then I'm going to go into what I consider to be some of the key skills of a tester. What is it that makes testers good? And then we're going to look at challenges. As testers, we all have challenges. And often with speeches or talks at conferences, it may come up questions about challenges, but don't always get the answers. So I'm going to try and give you some answers as to how to overcome those challenges as you go through your career. And then we're going to touch on the future. We're going to look into the crystal ball. We're going to try and see what the future of testing and how you can then gear your career forwards. So a little bit about myself. I live in Cambridge. With my family, I enjoy gardening. This is my COVID project. They allowed hardware or hard landscape. So I built a path, raised beds. There's a decking in the back garden in the thing. There's a outdoor kitchen where I cook my pizzas. And this picture was taken a couple of weeks ago. So you can see in 3 years, it's blossomed. I'm also quite a keen runner. I've run 3 marathons. Last marathon I ran was, again, in COVID. I decided that I'd run the virtual London Marathon round the guided busway in Cambridge. And so I trained up from 10K to 40K, except I only signed up to it within 5 weeks. So I managed to do a whole marathon within 5 weeks. I still managed to do it in 4 hours 20, which isn't a bad time considering I ramped up so quickly. I wouldn't recommend doing it again. Also, no presentation should be complete without a cute animal. So this is my dog, Digby. He's there guarding his chew. You can see he's an absolutely ferocious beast and he will really bite your hand off if you ever came close to it. And Simon mentioned it earlier that I am also one of the co-hosts of the Testing Peers, and I have my stats as well, that we have got 82 episodes and we've got over 33,000 downloads. And we are considering the Peers Con at the moment. And if for reference, I think this slide would actually fail on the accessibility because the grey of the Testing Peers merges into the green. So my personal career journey. So many years ago, I came out of college and I became a secondary science teacher. I did all 3 sciences to GCSEs. So I was therefore used to imparting information, teaching people, and also coaching them and mentoring them through the early stages of their life and their career. I then got fed up with teaching, and so then I became a support service engineer. And I worked on 2 help desks. I first of all supported teachers. They were obviously not particularly computer savvy, and the software that they had protected the admin side from the user side, so the kids. And if they installed software, educational software, it had to go through that security wall. So they would come up and go, this software isn't actually working. So I would then install it and then test it to check it. So even at this stage, I was a tester. I didn't have the title of a tester, but I was a tester at that stage. And I did a similar thing. I then moved on to supporting pharmaceutical sales reps. And again, they had distinct software on their things. If changes were made to that software, I had to test it. Windows updates, I had to test it so that the data that the pharmaceutical reps had was up to standard. So again, I was a tester as part of that role. Then I moved into programming. I was looking at databases, I was in SQL. I was again looking at that pharmaceutical data to make sure their data was up to date and the reports were. So again, that had an element of testing, of making sure that the data was consistent going through. I then did a stint as a programmer as part of a pharmaceutical research. So I was looking at the data from trials, from data trials. Again, vital information that needs to be ensured that the data going through, when it gets through to the FDA or whatever, then it's correct. Then eventually, I actually had tester in my title. I worked for 3 companies. I worked for an Internet of Things company, which was looking at home automation. I then looked at smart meters, and they're almost in every house at the moment. And as part of both the Internet of Things and the smart meters, I looked at embedded testing. I was looking at the actual software on hardware devices. And then where I am at the moment is a consultancy. It's a company called Cambridge Consultants. They're a product development company. They produce both hardware and software and cloud services. And so it's a really exciting place. We get to see a lot of products as part of that. And in the consultancy, I've been there for 9 years. For 5 years of that, I've been a group lead. So I've line managed a lot of people through it. At one stage last year, on my own, I was line managing 32 testers. I had 32 testers that I was looking after, and they are at every stage of their career. There are some interns. There are some interns that are halfway through their university. Then we've got graduates. We've got mid-term testers. We've got very experienced testers as well. So I've been able to see the whole range and keep them engaged throughout COVID and everything else. I had these testers, and we had very low attrition in the company. So my talk today is to why we should consider test. So other people have already said today that software is produced, and we know that it's never going to be 100% bug-free. We know that there is always going to be a bug in there. So as a tester, the exciting thing is we can try and find those bugs. So we can do verification. We can see whether the design that the developers actually did was actually correct. We can do the verification. We can then, the fantastic thing about us as testers is we don't just need to look at the design. We need to put the thought process into the end user, the customer. Is it actually fit for purpose? Is it how they would like it to be used? So it isn't just the design. It's actually, we can put our thought process into actually, is it good enough? We mentioned quite a lot about testing the life cycle, collaborative, working with developers and stuff. And I'm completely on board with that, and especially quality engineering. Bringing everyone in, bringing up the support of quality everywhere in the life cycle. However, if everyone is just looking at quality in their own realm, then it can often slip within the gaps because they think it's someone else's responsibility. So what I think as testers is that we should be advocates, we should be champions for the quality and for test on this, because we've got the ability to talk about the clients or the end user, and also we've got the design. So actually, we can then empower everyone else and help everyone else along the journey. And therefore, we have impact. We have impact on the whole of this. We have impact on DevOps, and we have impact on so much more than we've done before. Because we can be responsible, or we can help and inform people to produce a better product, and as a consequence, because of the fit for purpose, happier customers or end users. And how great that is that. So, testing approaches. There is so much that we can go into as testers. We've seen some fantastic talks today about those sort of areas that we can go into. Decide which you want to do, what you want to put your effort in. We mentioned about shift left, which is just trying to get testing as early as possible within the life cycle. Thinking of it early, thinking of it almost as soon as the statement of work, as soon as the client or the customer has thought about an idea, start thinking about how you're going to test it. Trying to get that mindset into the management of your company. I mentioned quality engineering, where everyone should have a responsibility for quality. Also CICD, I've put it in the shift left. It could equally be in the automation. But it's so fluid and great. There are also tools we've mentioned today about the behavior-driven development. There's also test-driven development. And I think Simon mentioned about the exploratory testing. Exploratory testing is a fantastic tool. It's so underrated, and even automation or anyone can actually use it. And so if you haven't actually read the book, Explore It by Elizabeth Hendrickson, I would definitely recommend that you do that. Because it just will give you a really good understanding of the system or the software or whatever you're doing, and its time box is just brilliant. You then got functional testing. I'm only touching on a few. So we've got accessibility, security, integration, and then performance. But there are so many other ones there that you can look at. I'm also going to touch on automation. So one of the key things, obviously, with automation is that you need a programming language. Generally, in our company, we recommend initially Python. It's accessible, it's easy to read, easy to maintain, and there are lots of modules to it. And so that's quite a good place, if you're not into automation yet, to actually go. You've also got two options of how you want to do automation. You could be writing scripts. You could be writing those scripts to actually do the small tests. On the other hand, you could become more like a software developer in test and look at frameworks. And how exciting would it be? You know, frameworks, they are almost like a project on their own, because not only are you creating a framework to do the design, to test the design, you're actually making it more complicated because you actually have to test it. How exciting is that? You're working on more complex systems than the thing that's going out to the customers. Then think about it again. What industries can you go into? So there are so many. So again, I'm just touching on it. So we've got cloud services. They're everywhere at the moment. You could look into commercial, gaming. That's quite an easy place to start, especially when you're quite young. I want to play Gran Turismo or whatever. Then you've got financial. You know, how bad would it be if you lost billions because of a glitch in a particular thing? And obviously data. I mentioned about embedded testing, so I'm going to talk about technology areas, and they're all quite hardware. But so there is obviously the Internet of Things. There's also telecommunications. So there's 5G, obviously 6G is on the horizon. That's not going to go away anywhere. Then there's Bluetooth or Bluetooth Low Energy. So don't just confine ourselves to all of this. There are so many different areas that you can discover. So what do you think, what I think is the skills of a tester? First of all, have an inquiring mind, have that sort of mindset, looking at that other sheet of what do I want to do? What do I want to do with my career? What areas interest me? What people have interested me today in these talks? What has inspired me? Let me find out more information. Let me talk to them. Let me find out a bit more. Also, ask questions. Ask as many questions as you can. Ask lots of questions. The best thing about having a new tester on a project is asking, why are you doing that? If you then reply, well, we've always done it like that. We've done it for 7 years. Then your next question is, well, why? Why have you done it? Why haven't you considered a different way? Because then if they were asking me, I have to then justify why I've chosen it. And actually that then opens up a whole thing, because actually, are we actually doing it just because it's habit, or are we actually considering it the best way? And actually, is it the best way? You might be able to come up with better ideas than I've done it because I've been doing it for 7 years. Also, don't be defined by your background. And I think it's a myth completely that I need a computer science degree to succeed in software test. I know it's a myth because my degree was in biology. I did biology. In my group of those 32 people, we do have computer science people, but we also have people who've done physics, mathematicians. We've had someone with humanities. We've even got people that don't have a degree at all. You don't need to be defined by your background. In fact, coming from a science, because I come from science, I see the software that comes to me as an experiment. It comes to me and my hypothesis is it's 100% bug-free. I know it isn't. We all know it isn't. So I then develop a series of tests or experiments to see and gain confidence as to how bug-free it is. So the challenges, what challenges do we have as testers? So I think that sometimes we can suffer from a lack of confidence. We can sometimes be put into situations, or we might be the lone tester in the company. You know, I developed into a tester through things. We might be seen by other people to have the skills of a tester, and so therefore be put in that position of actually checking it or testing stuff. And then you sort of get this crisis of confidence. Oh my gosh, do I know what I'm talking about? And so that's your imposter syndrome. Am I good enough? Can I come to a conference like this and stand up with other people and count on myself as a tester? And yes, you can, absolutely. But when you're alone in a company, then that you can struggle with. Others will question you. You might ask questions, but people will question you. I stood up for previous, so in the Internet of Things company, I was testing a door lock. It was a security door lock. You had to program it from a hub, and it was the first device we'd used, so it's brand new for the company. I stood up in a stand-up and I was asked how long would it take to test. And I said it would take 2 weeks. He said, oh, you've got 1 week to do it. I said, I gave the argument, you know, it's brand new, you know, we can't, to get that level of confidence, I think it needs 2 weeks. And lo and behold, it took 2 weeks to get the confidence. Another time, I was new in a company, and moments before another stand-up, I just found a bug. So I didn't really know the software that I was using. I found a bug. I knew it was a bug. I knew it shouldn't be seen, but I didn't know anything else about it. I didn't know what domain, what area of the software it was. So I stood up in the stand-up and said, I found a bug. I was quite honest and said, I don't know anything about it, but that's my priority today, is to find out where it is, and I'll report back tomorrow. The PM, and I distinctly remember he was standing by a window, turned to me and went, we are going to stand here until you tell me exactly where that bug is. I said, well, we're going to be standing here a long time because, as I just said, I don't know anything about it. I'm going to find out. No, he said, you are going to tell me where it is. I said, well, you are going to stay here a long time. I'm going to go and find that bug. And when I find it, I'll come to you first and tell you where it is, because I know where you'll be standing. So what we need to do as testers is be strong and stand up to these people. I mean, he became quite a good friend at the end, and you know, he was really good supporting. But if we try and make up the answer, then it will only come back to bite us. I could have said it was somewhere. I found it here. If it's not there and it's much more work, then the PM would then have evidence against me to go, you didn't know what you're talking about. I knew I didn't know what I was talking about because I didn't know anything about the software. So obviously, so therefore I didn't give him the chance to actually criticize my work by standing firm. I'd also say about questions is that there is nothing as a stupid question. Don't apologize for asking questions. If you have a question and you haven't got the answer, then ask it. Okay, overcoming challenges. So, as I said, those are the challenges. Let's see what you can do to overcome them. So I see that you need to seek support. Seek support from within your own company. First of all, there are advocates. There might be a person that suggested you become a tester. Talk to them. We've mentioned before other talks who said, get someone on your side, get an advocate that will support you in your journey. Now, the difficulty with that is that sometimes in your own company, you might come up with new ideas. You might say, I want to do, go into this particular area. I want to know about TDD. I want to know about exploratory testing. It's really exciting. Oh my gosh, how many conversations have I had about trying to explain exploratory testing to management? They don't get it. They don't understand. They don't quite get why are you just playing around with the software? Sometimes it is easier to ask forgiveness. So try it than ask permission, because if they don't understand what you're actually asking for, then the chances are they will say no. So try it, especially if there isn't much cost element as part of it. Try it and try it a couple of times. The first, I was talking about experiments. Don't always assume that the first answer or the first result is going to be correct. Try it a couple of times. If it's a success, then you can go back and say, I've tried this idea. I think we should expand it. If it isn't, then just sweep it under the carpet. Fine. Okay. Also, community. We're all here today. Fantastic. We've heard 10 talks here, or we will have had 10 talks here. Also, you've met each other. You've met each other. Get contacts. One thing I would say, though, is that people have been writing notes on all 10 talks. Don't try and implement all those 10 talks. We're all going to leave from here going, yes, I'm going to go back to my company. I'm going to change the world. And then go back, get that advocate. Do small changes. So make sure you keep those notes, but decide which one is most important, which one is most likely to succeed in your company, and go for that. Also, I'd say don't go for the revolution. Don't go, I've got this new idea, it's going to work fantastically. Incremental, 1%, one step every time, just moving it forwards. Because not everyone has been here today. Not everyone has seen the fantastic talks we've heard. So therefore, you need to instill that confidence that you know what you're doing and that you will move forward. Also, with those areas, you might want to look at training or certifications. You might want to certify yourself as a tester. It's fine if you want to do it. At the end of the day, a certificate is just a name on a piece of paper. But if you choose to do it, then that's fine for you. Also, training. Find the right training for you. Find your right learning style. Some people can look at YouTube videos. Some people can read books. Some people like face-to-face meetings and training. Choose the style that you want and make sure that you ask your company to actually put you on the style that you want, because that will give you the best chance of success again. So the future for you in your career, first of all, keep relevant. Everything I've said here is just keep learning. Come to conferences, talk to people, and talk to your community. Talk to these people here and learn new things. Do that training. Do the certification if you choose to do it. And make sure that you move forward. And constantly challenge yourself. How can I do things better? And challenge others as well. You could do this better. Talk to developers. Talk to other testers. We mentioned AI and ChatGPT. It's a, what's the future? What's the future of testing? It's going to take away our jobs. I think that personally, ChatGPT is a useful tool. It's a useful tool. I've used it at times. You can get a list, for example, of test cases, and you can then use them. Yeah. But there might need a bit of tweaking. AI, we've heard some talks today about how we can use AI on it. And I think that AI especially is a useful tool. It'll help things get things done faster, and ChatGPT will as well, except the thing for me is the fact that they don't have that empathy. They don't have that empathy. For me, when I'm testing software, again, with the end user thought process on my head, is that 100 small bugs are really annoying and can mean that the software isn't actually fit for purpose. Whereas if you just go through the tests and tick it, then actually, does it then fit the criterion? The other thing I would say is that with the danger of ChatGPT is that, not again putting that sort of advocate hat on, is that anyone can do testing. I can just ask for some test cases and that will then work. But actually, we all know that actually that doesn't, we need tweaking. We need to tweak that ChatGPT. We need to make sure that the whole suite is actually tested. So I think it's a useful tool. So this is my quote at the end for your careers. So always be the advocate of quality and have impact at every part of your career as testers. So thank you very much for listening.
Very interesting talk, David. Thank you. A question from your early stages in testing, really as a science teacher.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Science teaching, you're testing all the time.
And also
at the micro level, each lesson.
I was thinking about this morning, also the questioning. You are always questioned by pupils, and there's always a curveball. And the best thing to do, and again, that goes back to what I was saying about asking where this thing. Don't be afraid to say, I don't know. As long as you find out the answer and go back to the pupil. Pupils sometimes forgotten what the question they asked because it's the next day, but it gains confidence in their ability, or your ability to them, because you've taken the time to find them the answer. Any other questions? Yeah.
You mentioned inquiring minds. In the earlier part of my career, that was sometimes seen as a boat rocker or a troublemaker. Is that still the case today, or have we had a cultural shift? And have you got advice on how we can overcome that stigma of being seen as a boat rocker or a troublemaker?
I think testers have that general thought process about that we're troublemakers anyway. So why not challenge that anyway and go, yes, we are troublemakers. I'm joking, but I think that if you are being challenged, then again, you just do small increments. Do small increments. I would like to do this. I've seen this in action. I've been to a conference. I've heard this will work. I think that we should try and investigate and try and just make that change slowly. That's what I'd say. Don't try and go, it's all changed for everybody. If you can prove it yourself, what we need as an individual is one supporter. As a line manager of the group, I would always go to people. Yes, if they come up with an idea and they want to put the effort in and not rely on me to do it for them, I would most often say, yes, go and try it. Because that then empowers them to try it. If it's good, then we can feed back and all have to go. If it doesn't, then it's an experiment that didn't work. Yes.
You say about learning new things. What's your criteria for learning something new when you want to pick something up? What makes you decide that you want to pick it up?
Well, you can get ideas from anywhere. You can get ideas from here. You can get ideas from what you read, what you hear, just by looking at what you've actually done. Some of the best ideas that I've come up with have started from almost seeds. So there might be someone's come up with one thing and then I think, all right, that works well in that context. Let's expand it to something bigger. So in order to find something new, it's a gut instinct as to what you find interesting. Look around what you've got to do. If you think about entrepreneurs, where do their new ideas come from? It's from what they see in the real world and what they see around them and what they hear from other people and what gives them a buzz.